It is sitting right outside your house right now. You walk past it every day without thinking about it. You park next to dozens of them at the grocery store. You see hundreds of them on every highway in the country. And the vehicle you own today weighs nearly 1,700 pounds more than the equivalent one a European drives. The average American car weighs 4,500 pounds. The average European car weighs 2,800 pounds. The average Japanese K car weighs just 2,200 pounds. American pickup trucks, like the Ford F-150, push past 5,500 pounds. The Cadillac Escalade weighs over 6,000 pounds. That is heavier than a small elephant. That is heavier than every family car sold in Italy combined when stacked together. Most Americans drive past their own driveway every day without realizing they are operating the largest passenger vehicles on the planet. Vehicles so big that they will not fit in European parking spaces. So heavy that European bridges have weight limits that exclude them. So tall that pedestrian fatalities in America have risen 80% since 2009, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And the reason this happened is not because Americans wanted bigger cars. It is because of a tariff dispute over imported chickens in 1964. Stick with me. This story is going to make sense in about 3 minutes. Hidden Systems explains the everyday objects in homes and daily life that look like personal choices, but are actually decisions made decades ago by people you will never meet. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Now back to the chickens. In 1962, West Germany imposed a tariff on imported American chicken. The American poultry industry was flooding European markets with cheap factory-farmed chicken, and German farmers were losing business. The German government taxed the imports to protect their farmers. France did the same thing. So did the Netherlands. The American government was furious. President Lyndon Johnson retaliated in 1964 with what is now called the chicken tax, a 25% tariff on European trucks, brandy, potato starch, and dextrin. Most of these tariffs were quietly removed over the next 20 years, but one stayed in place. The 25% tariff on imported light trucks remained on the books and is still in force today. In 2026, 62 years after a dispute about chickens, this single surviving tariff made it economically impossible for European and Japanese truck manufacturers to compete in the American market. Volkswagen tried. Mercedes-Benz tried. Toyota and Mitsubishi tried. Every one of them either gave up or had to build factories on American soil specifically to avoid the tariff. The American pickup truck industry grew up without foreign competition for over half a century. Here is what most people do not realize about that fact. Without foreign competition, American manufacturers had no incentive to make trucks smaller, lighter, or more fuel efficient. They had every incentive to make them bigger. Bigger trucks earned higher profit margins. Bigger trucks could be marketed as more capable. Bigger trucks justified higher prices. By 1985, every domestic manufacturer was building bigger trucks every year. And that is when the second thing happened. In 1975, the federal government passed the Corporate Average Fuel Economy Standards, the CAFE rules. These rules required manufacturers to meet a minimum fleet average for fuel efficiency. The original target was 18 miles per gallon, rising to 27.5 by 1985. But there was a problem, or actually, an opportunity. The CAFE rules created two separate categories: passenger cars and light trucks. Passenger cars had stricter fuel efficiency requirements. Light trucks had much weaker ones, because in 1975, light trucks were assumed to be commercial work vehicles like delivery vans and small pickup trucks used by farmers and tradespeople. Nobody anticipated that ordinary American families would start buying them as primary household vehicles. Then the SUV happened. The American SUV was deliberately classified as a light truck. Not a passenger car, a light truck. Even though it was sold to families, marketed to families, and used by families exactly like a station wagon would have been used in the 1970s. The classification meant that SUV manufacturers had to meet only the much weaker light truck fuel efficiency standards. They could build bigger, heavier, less efficient vehicles legally as long as they slapped on enough truck-like features to qualify. By 1995, the Ford Explorer, the Jeep Grand Cherokee, and the Chevy Tahoe were dominating the American market. By 2005, SUVs and pickup trucks combined outsold passenger cars in the United States for the first time. By 2025, more than 80% of new vehicles sold in America were classified as light trucks. Here I have to admit something. When I started researching this video, I assumed Americans drove big cars because they liked them. Bigger is better. American culture. The data forced me to throw that assumption out completely. Americans drive big cars because the regulatory system in the 1970s and 1980s deliberately made big cars cheaper and easier for manufacturers to produce than small ones. The market did not demand bigger vehicles. The market was shaped by tariffs, fuel economy loopholes, and tax incentives that made big vehicles the most profitable thing American manufacturers could legally build. The behavior did not precede the appliance. The appliance preceded the behavior. Now here is the third thing that locked the whole system in place: cheap gasoline. In Europe, the average price of gasoline has been 3 to 4 times higher than American prices for the last 50 years. This is not an accident. European countries deliberately tax gasoline heavily to discourage driving and fund public transit. When you fill up a Volkswagen Golf in Germany, you are paying around €7 per gallon equivalent. The same fill-up in America costs about $3 per gallon. This price difference is not new. It has been consistent since the 1970s oil crisis. European drivers responded by buying smaller, more fuel-efficient cars. The Volkswagen Polo, the Fiat 500, the Renault Clio, the Peugeot 28. These tiny city cars dominate European roads because their owners cannot afford to drive anything larger. American drivers responded by buying SUVs. Because gas was cheap, because trucks were tax-advantaged, because there was no penalty for inefficiency. The chicken tax made foreign competition impossible. The tariff loophole made big vehicles legally cheaper to build. Cheap gasoline made big vehicles affordable to operate. 3 policies stacked on top of each other over 60 years produced a country where the average daily vehicle weighs as much as 4 European cars combined. Compare those 2 parking lots for a second. Typical American grocery store parking lot is built for vehicles averaging 4,500 pounds. The spaces are wider. The aisles are wider. The lot itself is enormous. The whole infrastructure is designed around moving large vehicles. Typical European grocery store parking lot is built for vehicles averaging 2,800 pounds. The spaces are narrower. The aisles are narrower. The lot is smaller. Pedestrians actually walk in the spaces between cars without fear. Same purpose, same century of design. 2 completely different relationships with what fits inside. One is built around vehicles, the other is built around people. Neither is wrong, but they are not interchangeable. The infrastructure cost of American vehicle size is invisible until you measure it. Wider roads, bigger bridges, larger parking structures, heavier guardrails, stronger bridges to carry the weight. According to the Federal Highway Administration, American road infrastructure costs approximately 40% more per mile to build than equivalent European infrastructure. The reason is vehicle weight. Heavier vehicles destroy roads faster. Heavier vehicles require stronger bridges. Heavier vehicles need larger emergency response vehicles to handle accidents. Stack those 3 causes: the chicken tax of 1964, the tariff light truck loophole, 50 years of artificially cheap gasoline, and you get the modern American vehicle fleet. The largest, heaviest, most fuel-intensive passenger vehicles ever sold in the developed world. The thing keeps growing. The Ford F-150 was 4,000 pounds in 1985. It is 5,500 pounds in 2026. The Chevy Suburban was 5,400 pounds in 1985. It is 6,800 pounds in 2026. The Cadillac Escalade did not exist in 1985. The current version weighs over 6,100 pounds. Every model year, American vehicles add weight, add features, and add cost. There is one detail in the historical record that reveals the whole logic of how this happened. In 1973, during the Arab oil embargo, American automakers briefly experimented with smaller, more efficient vehicles: the Ford Pinto, the Chevy Vega, the AMC Gremlin. Sales were strong while gas prices stayed high. But by 1985, When gas prices crashed and the SUV loophole opened, every major American manufacturer pivoted to large vehicles. The Pinto was discontinued. The Vega was discontinued. The Gremlin was discontinued. Read that backwards. Americans did not reject small cars. Americans bought small cars when the economics made small cars rational. American manufacturers stopped building small cars when the economics made big cars more profitable. The vehicle size on American roads is not a reflection of American preferences. It is a reflection of the regulatory and tax environment those vehicles operate in. If gasoline costs $7 a gallon in America tomorrow, the average vehicle weight would drop within 5 years. Henry Ford died in 1947 with a fortune built on the Model T, a vehicle that weighed 1,200 pounds and was designed to be the most affordable, efficient transportation possible for ordinary American families. He could not have imagined that a century after his death, the average vehicle in the country he revolutionized would weigh almost 4 times what his Model T weighed. That a 2026 Ford F-150 would cost more than a Levittown house cost in 1947. That the entire industry he built around making transportation accessible would optimize itself around making transportation as large, heavy, and expensive as possible. Each American vehicle on the road today carries more metal than the entire Model T weighed. How heavy is your car? Drop the make, model, and weight in the comments. I want to see the range across this channel. I read every single one.